You know what's crazy about dating? Most guys are out here playing checkers when women are out here playing 4D chess.
Guys are getting tested in ways they don't even realize. They're failing exams they didn't even know they were taking. And then they're wondering why they keep striking out. Now, here is a mind-blowing stat. In my decade plus of coaching men, I found that probably about 80% of the time when a woman suddenly loses interest, it's because a guy failed one of these tests. And he fails it without even realizing it. So today, I am going to break down not just the tests, but also the psychology behind why women test men in the first place. What's up? I am Rob Judge, and today we are diving into the psychology behind why women test men. Now, before you start typing in the comment section, but Rob, women shouldn't test us, that's manipulative. Chill. Testing isn't some calculated scheme. It is hardwired into a woman's psychology, and this comes from millions of years of evolution. Think about it like this. Back in caveman times, women had a lot more at stake in choosing a partner. For a man, worst case scenario is that we might waste an evening laying it down with some fugly cave lady, right? But for a woman, picking the wrong guy could mean winding up with a weak, unreliable partner who would bail or he'd crumble once times got tough. So women develop these unconscious screening mechanisms, these tests to separate the strong from the weak, the confident from the insecure, and the lovers from the lonely bros in her friend zone. So in this video, I am not just going to expose these tests. I am going to show you how to pass them with flying colors using real examples, proven strategies, and we're going to try to throw in a little bit of humor to keep things interesting. So let's get into it. 1. The pressure test. This is the granddaddy of all tests, and I see guys failing it every single day. I'm sure you can imagine what a pressure test looks like. It's when you're talking to some smoke show. Maybe you just met her at the bar and she throws in some off-key note like, "You're trying pretty hard to impress me, aren't you?" Now, how would most guys respond to something like that? Most guys would stammer, "Oh no, not at all. I'm just over here being myself." And then they probably spend the next 5 minutes explaining how they're actually, quote unquote, a really genuine guy. Once you do that, once you cave to the pressure, look, it's game over. And here's why this matters. A pressure test isn't about the specific comment she made. It's about seeing if you'll keep your composure under fire, under stress. Women instinctively know that a guy who gets defensive over, a small jab, that he's not going to be able to handle real world pressure. Back in the day, we used to call this a shit test because she's testing to see if you're going to shit yourself. And if there's fecal matter in your undies, even if it's the proverbial fecal matter, you fail the test. So how then does one pass the pressure test? Now that's easy. You just keep your cool. And, in terms of responses, two that I like to go with, I either like to agree and amplify, which, to return to our example, would sound something like, "Oh, busted. You got me. If I was trying any harder, I'd be out here breaking a sweat." Or you can do what I call the Pacino, which is responding as if she just complimented you. For example, "Thanks, I try to bring my A game whenever I talk to cute girls. Less cute girls, they get like my C- game, but for the cute chicks, I try to bring my best." 2. The conviction test. Here's a little personal story that taught me a lot about conviction tests. Years ago, I matched with this really hot Brazilian girl, her name was Bonnie, on Tinder. And after a few back and forth messages, I suggested that we meet up at a dive bar. This dive bar is called the Twisted Lizard. And what I got back was a less than thrilled response, which was, "Really? You're taking me to some dingy bar and grill? Are you kidding?" Now, you see, most guys, they would probably either apologize or they frantically suggest going somewhere fancier, somewhere nicer, more expensive. But instead, I replied, "Yeah, well, unfortunately, the Ritz-Carlton wasn't taking reservations." The response I got back was that she busted up laughing, and we ended up having a really fun date, a really fun night out at the Twisted Lizard. Now, why did this work? It worked because I showed conviction without being a dick about it. Women test your conviction because they're looking for a man who can lead, not a little pushover pussy who changes his mind every time he gets challenged. 3. The autonomy test. This is where most guys in the 2020s absolutely shit the bed. Now, let me tell you about a client who I worked with. And this guy, successful guy, makes 6 figures, but he was failing this test left and right. Why? Because every time this girl that he was dating, every time she didn't respond to his text within like an hour or so, he would start sending the follow-up text like, everything okay? Did I say something wrong? Is your phone broken? Neediness is like kryptonite to attraction. But here's what's crazy. This guy, my client, he wasn't actually needy. He's running this multi-million-dollar company, so he's not, to me, he didn't seem like a needy guy. But the moment this girl came to his life, he suddenly became this clingy teenager. And when it comes to the autonomy test, here's what women are actually testing for. Can you maintain your independence? Do you have your own life? Or are you going to turn into a human barnacle the moment that she starts showing you a little bit of interest? And now some classic autonomy tests include, when a woman takes hours to respond to your text, when she mentions plans, but she doesn't mention you in those plans, when she brings up male friends, maybe, or brings up male colleagues, or maybe she's even a little bit vague about her schedule, right? And now the correct response to all these tests, you need to have a life, and you need to have a life that's so full and interesting that you barely even notice the test is even happening. And if you do notice, you certainly don't react to it. In fact, you don't even care. 4. The thirst test. This one's evolved with social media, and holy shit, you guys fail it spectacularly. It's not just about thirst traps on Instagram anymore, though if you're that guy leaving comments with the heart eye emojis, please stop immediately. But let me tell you a story, okay? And this is a young Rob back in high school. I used to walk around thinking that every girl was a cock tease. Everywhere I went, it seemed every girl I talked to, she'd say something suggestive, and then I felt like she was leading me on. Everyone's a cock tease. But then I realized something. I wasn't meeting cock teases. I was just failing the thirst tests. Now, here's what a thirst test, what it looks like, right? It would be like a girl saying, I just bought some new underwear. You want to see? It would be a girl maybe sending you slightly suggestive, but not explicit photos, right? It might even be a girl who makes a little bit of a sexual innuendo in conversation. She drops a little sexual breadcrumb on you. Most guys, they either get overly excited or as soon as they see the breadcrumb, they try to escalate immediately. And now these are both fails. Because what's the correct response? The correct response is you stay calm and you flip the script. If she mentions her new underwear, say, oh, cool, they're granny panties. When you sidestep the bait like that, you come off like a guy who gets laid, a guy who's in control. And trust me, that's the guy she's going to find way more attractive. And it's funny, too. When you show a woman that you're not some overly horny caricature, like one of those old school cartoon wolves whose eyes bulge out of his skull and steam whistles come from his ears and his tongue unrolls like he's got a red carpet every time he sees a sexy woman or a woman makes a sort of sexy remark. And it's funny, when you show a woman that you're not some overly horny, crazy, amped up, coked up, horny cartoon character, if she sees that you're not that way, she's going to start chasing you. And now why is that? Because when you're not reacting like every other guy who loses his mind at the faintest whiff of sex, you're in control. And when she realizes that she can't manipulate you with her bait, the script flips and she starts chasing you. But that's only going to happen if you're smart enough to recognize your test and you're disciplined enough to keep your cool. 5, the jealousy test. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A jealousy test can either be, normal screening, like a normal test, or this can be a real red flag. And it all depends on the context. Let me give you an example, and this example comes from my personal life. I had a friend who was seeing this girl, and sometimes when they would be out, this girl would start talking to other guys. And now look, it wasn't like she was going home with these guys. It wasn't even like she was even really flirting with them. But sometimes if they were out at a bar or a social event, she might strike up a conversation with, the bartender or a guy sitting nearby or something like that. Well, it's just kind of casual conversation. She's a real extroverted lady. But this used to drive my friend crazy. He would call me after a date and he would give me an earful about how mad he was that she wasn't giving him her full attention, her full respect. And the funny thing about my friend, though, was that I knew he was seeing several girls at the same time, right? And he wasn't even being discreet about it. She knew too. We all knew this. It was an open secret. So I pointed out his hypocrisy to him, but he just couldn't see past his jealous rage. He still was blaming her. And now, unsurprisingly, he ended up losing that girl. And I think a major reason she dumped him was because he failed her jealousy test. And I've seen this happen with plenty of other guys as well. Look, until you're in a committed relationship with a woman, and by committed relationship, I mean that you both mutually agreed to be exclusive. And this is something you guys probably actually talked about. Until that happens, you can do whatever you want, but you also have to extend that same freedom to her. Until she's your girlfriend, you can't really tell her not to talk to other guys. Yeah, I know it may rankle your pride, masculine pride of yours, but getting mad, and let's be honest, you're not really mad. You're just jealous. When you act like that, when she sees that, it only makes you look weak and insecure. But look, there is a limit to jealousy tests. You've got the toxic version, where a woman deliberately tries to make you jealous by posting pictures with other guys, talking about her exes, or she goes out of her way to flirt with dudes right in front of you. And especially if it involves any kind of physical contact, like dancing or grinding. If you're on a first date with a woman and she starts grinding on another guy, that's not a test. She is just a wretched bitch. So here's how to tell the difference between a jealousy test and toxic thought behaviors. A test is usually subtle and occasional. A red flag is overt and frequent. A test stops when you pass it. Toxic behavior escalates when you ignore it. The winning response to a normal jealousy test is amused mastery. And look, every time I'm out with my wife, right, and I come back, let's say I go to the bathroom, I come back, sit down, and some guy talking to her, I always joke with her. It was like, I might as well just reach for my popcorn at that point. Because think about it. For me, the professional, I would love to see a guy who has so much riz that he could steal my wife in the time it took me to go to the bathroom, take a piss, and walk back. Like, really, if some random guy at the bar could pull that off, I'm paying money to learn from that guy. And you should have the exact same attitude, the exact same confidence. You should be so unthreatened, unbothered by some other guy talking to, a girl you're out with, that you should see it as a joke. It should be amusing to you, because that's how you pass a jealousy test. 6, the boredom test. This might be the most brutal test because it's constant. Let me reference one of my favorite evolutionary psychology books, The Mating Mind by Jeffrey Miller. In the book, Miller makes this really fascinating point about how human intelligence evolved not just for survival, but also for entertainment. And specifically, entertainment when it comes to sexual selection. So in other words, being boring isn't just unattractive, it's literally anti-evolutionary. Your ancestors got laid because they were entertaining. Think about that for a minute. So while you're thinking about that, let's look at a transcript that perfectly illustrates a failed boredom test. Him. Where are you from? Her. L.A. Him. Oh, cool. What part? Her. Santa Monica. Him. Nice. I've been there before. Dead in the water. So here's a flip that. Him. Where are you from? Her. L.A. Him. Ah, an L.A. girl, huh? I would have never guessed. Judging from your quick wit and your fashion sense here, I get pegged more as an East Coast girl. Interesting. So do you see the difference there? One is an interview. The other, it's more entertainment. It's more banter. 7, the EQ test. If there's one test that separates the men from the boys, it's this one. Let me tell you about a massive EQ fail that I am literally never going to forget. Because when I first started coaching, because all the way back when I first started coaching, I had this client come to me and he told me about this date. This date where a woman showed up and she was clearly stressed out. She's probably in a stress mood, and started to tell him it's because she's falling behind at work. She's afraid she's going to get fired, yada, yada, yada. Now, rather than try to change her mood by showing her a good time, by making her laugh, loosening her up a bit, rather than even displaying a little bit of empathy and just listening to her, my guy decides that It's his time to launch into an impromptu TED Talk about time management and productivity hacks. Now, my heart goes out to this guy because, like, look, he's not wrong. I mean, here's a guy who he's really into self-help, and in his mind, he thought he was doing the right thing, right? And logically, I'm sure all the advice he gave her was actually probably solid and sound. Maybe she should have listened and she would be losing her job. But that's not the point. The point is that he wasn't at a Tony Robbins seminar. He was on a date. And when you do stuff like that on a date, you completely fail the EQ test because you're trying to use logic in an emotional setting. It's like trying to fit the square peg into the proverbial round hole. Look, I'm going to let you in on a secret about women that a lot of guys just have trouble wrapping their head around. When a woman expresses a negative emotion, she's not looking for logic. She's not looking for you to solve her problem. She's not hoping that you'll swoop in with your problem-solving skills, your self-help knowledge. Instead, you want to treat this as a test of your emotional intelligence. When a woman is in a bad mood, the best thing you can do is change her mood by engaging her emotion. She's stressed. If you can get her laughing, if you can get her loosened up a bit, she is going to love you for it. One of the reasons that strong, independent men are so attractive is because they can influence how the people around them feel, and not vice versa. A man who has high EQ is able to recognize when a woman is in a negative state, and rather than try to change her mind with logic, he's able to change her mood by engaging her with positive emotions. 8. The provider test. And this is the one no one talks about. This isn't just a test, this is the test. The meta test. The test that's happening while all the other tests are happening. Women are constantly categorizing men into 2 buckets. One bucket is the lover, the fun guy, the hookup guy, hookup material. The other bucket number 2, that's the provider guy, the boyfriend, and a lot of times, friend zone material. And here's the kicker. Which bucket you end up in isn't carved in stone. It's fluid. And how you handle every interaction, every little test, determines which category she's placed you in. But here's the twist. Most guys screw it up because they're so desperate to land in one bucket, the boyfriend bucket, that they inadvertently dump themselves into the ghosted bucket. Let me explain. When a guy really likes a woman, he often thinks, I need to show her I'm boyfriend material. This means that he probably goes full-blown provider mode, where he's overly respectful, he plays it safe, he starts trying to earn her approval like he's applying for a job at the Bureau of Girlfriend Affairs. He takes her to the fancy dinners, buys her the unnecessary gifts, and he always makes himself available. And I mean that both figuratively and literally. He makes sure that she always knows that he's ready to spend time with her, and he also makes sure that she knows he's a respectable gentleman who's not seeing or even talking to any other women. It's all her all the time because, that's what he thinks that she thinks would make a good boyfriend. But what does all this really do? 9 times out of 10, it gets you labeled as the nice guy who's so sweet. And you know where she puts all the nice guys who are so sweet? She throws those motherfuckers into the friend zone. You're going in the friend zone bucket or the ghosted bucket. And here's what's even more frustrating about this test. The lover bucket, the one that you really want to be in, isn't just the hookup material category. Women move men from the lover bucket into the boyfriend bucket all the time. That's right, guys who start in the lover bucket often end up being the boyfriends, while the guys try to be boyfriend material are the guys who are stuck holding the metaphorical purse during Sunday brunch, and there's no action in sight for those guys. So why does this happen? Women don't want a guy who's desperately trying to prove he's boyfriend material. Why? Because it reeks of insecurity. It screams, I'll do anything for your approval. The guys who pass the provider test are the ones who don't try to force themselves into the boyfriend category. They're not groveling for approval. They're not bending over backward to prove that they're the one. They're just living their lives, staying in control, and now this is key, they're letting the woman decide for herself which bucket they belong in. And ironically, when a guy acts like he's not chasing the boyfriend bucket, he's way more likely to end up in it. Women start seeing him as the fun, confident guy who's not afraid to challenge her, who's not afraid to tease her, and who even makes her work for his attention, for his attraction. And that, my friends, is irresistible. So now that I have thoroughly impressed you by pointing out all the ways that you're probably failing with women, let's talk about solutions. Because here's the good news. Once you understand these tests, they become incredibly easy to pass. Think of it like this. Right now, you're playing a game where you don't even know the rules. So of course you're going to fail. Of course you're going to lose. But once you understand the rules, you can actually start playing the right way, which means playing to win. So I'm going to run through a cheat sheet of how to pass a woman's 8 tests. For pressure tests, never defend yourself, never explain yourself. Agree and amplify or use the Pacino. Stay on reactive and stay calm. Her tests are actually foreplay in disguise. For conviction tests, stand your ground on things that matter, but be flexible on things that don't. Learn the difference between real objections and tests. Lead with playful confidence. For autonomy tests, have a life outside of her. Match or drop a little bit below her investment level. Never chase. Let her wonder about you. And when you feel like you need to do something, that's almost always when you shouldn't do anything. Go silent. For thirst tests, never bite on obvious bait. Let her be the one to bring sex back into the conversation. He who cares least wins. And Bobby had a saying, the hungry don't get fed. If you show her that you're so sex starved that you're salivating when she drops a few crumbs, a few sex crumbs at your feet, she is never going to let you eat. Think about that. For jealousy tests, respond with amused mastery. Know the difference between a woman's tests and a toxic woman. Never show that you're affected. Remember, jealousy is unattractive, period. Personally, I'd end a relationship before I'd let a woman see me fly off the handle and throw a jealous hissy fit. For boredom tests, turn mundane questions into playful banter. Keep conversations emotionally engaging. Entertainment creates attraction. Take responsibility for the vibe. If the conversation becomes stale and boring, she's going to blame you. It may not be fair, but it's how things are. For EQ tests, she doesn't want or care about your advice. Unless she explicitly asks, don't tell her what she should do or how she should live her life. Never try to logic your way through emotions. Change her mood, not her mind. Strong, attractive men affect the mood of the people around them, not vice versa. For bucket tests, stop treating dates like they're an audition for the boyfriend role. Most, if not all of her exes were hookups before they were boyfriends. You're not going to be the exception. Let her wonder where she stands with you. And remember, the harder you try, the more you fail. Now look, I know some of you are thinking that this is too much work and why should I have to pass all these tests? Why can't women just be direct? Well, why can't you bench 500 pounds? Why can't you eat whatever the hell you want and, have 6-pack abs? Why can't you make $1 million and only work like 4 hours a week? Because that's not how reality works. You can either adapt to reality or you could stay butthurt about it. Lucky for you, I'm here to make things easier on you, even if it means I have to give you a little tough love from time to time. And with that, to make things a little bit easier on you, I went ahead and I posted the women's test cheat sheet on my blog. So what you should do is you should go check out the link in the video description to download a 1-page PDF that summarizes all the tests I just mentioned, along with bullet points on how to pass them. And like I said, since I'm trying to help you out, that's totally free. Just go to the link, you download the PDF, and you'll learn from it. And now, also, if you want to do a deep dive into all of this stuff, into tests, into retraction, into banter, all the stuff that all my videos talk about, I pulled all of this together. I take my best stuff and I've really created something special. It is called Unlock the Scrambler. And it's a complete system, a complete course for understanding and passing these tests while building genuine attraction. Bobby Rio and I, we have spent years developing this stuff, and we've tested it with thousands of clients, and we've refined it into something that flat out works. You go through the course, you get better with women. You get more women. You get higher quality women. So if you want to learn more, check out www.unlockthescrambler.com/Rob. Or go ahead and click on the link in the description. We'll put that in the description below as well. Oh, and finally, do me a favor, and this one is totally free. Go ahead and drop a comment letting me know which of these tests that you've seen the most, which one that you've encountered. And as always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe. Again, things that cost absolutely nothing, but it really helps the channel, really helps me as a creator, and it keeps me motivated and incentivized to continue to create these videos. And until next time, remember, the test is always running. The only question is, are you finally ready to pass it?